Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing? What's up, Travis? How are you? Hey, Leslie, how are you? Good to see everyone. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. So, what we're going to do tonight is what are peeps? Is that some sort of fancy new snack? Or am I completely missing the lingo? Marshmallow Easter things. Oh, cool. Easter candy. All right. That's right. And welcome to all the folks that are joining us on YouTube. Hey, Martin. Oh, so this craziness is going to open in about 5 minutes. And so what I did, I took the 5 minute chart and I did a balance zone from the close of business on Friday. Now I used 50.88 and a half to 51.05 and a quarter. Now this is just rough. It's not. Please remember, don't trade anything until you've actually gone and tested it. Also, we have no idea where this thing's going to open. Okay. If you went and you looked at the order book right now, it's showing a 50-50. There's bids at 50-50, but I have no idea where this market's going to open. So it could open gap down, right? So I am going to just expand these levels out. So the red is the discount zone. So if cost basis actually I drew the volume profile here to show the point of control. The closing point of control was around 51.10. So all of that trapped long volume is above us. Remember that when you're trying to trade tonight, especially if you're a buy the dip trader. Now, if you're a short seller, what you want to do when a market opens is you want to let the market go and find the bid. Now, what does that mean? In that opening option, right? Oh, thanks for thanks, Wilson. Should be able to see it in a second or two here. Thanks, Leslie. When you look at a pre-market, the large traders put their expressions of interest into the DOM, right? Nothing's trading yet, but they'll try and find that, what do they call it, indicative opening price, right? That's why I don't like to trade a market when it first opens. I like the market to open up and then tell me where the bid is. Once you find the bid, then you can trade off of it. So let the large traders short or sell the market down to where the big buyers are, then they're going to lift their offers. Let that, let that occur so you don't get trapped, especially in markets like this today. We have no idea where this kooky thing's going to open, right? It could open gap down 50-50. It could, it could be anywhere. So, I have no way of telling, right? So if we do have a gap down, just let the thing trade, okay? I'm sure I saw a lot of the brokerage firms had adjusted their margins again. Don't be too overeager, right? I will let the market trade, find out where the buying is, and then sort of, once your trade setup appears, right, the method in which you do business, once that shows itself, then you can go and execute. I don't like trading when I don't know what's going on. It's just like throwing money out the window. You know, I'm just too cheap. This week might be another horrible week. The market will try and find the bid. There'll be some violent short covering at some point. Um, you know, it's not our first rodeo, right? We went through COVID, and let's see where this puppy opens up. There it is. So it opens gap down, right? It opened just under 50.10. And I'm just going to put this on a 1 minute chart. And you can see my data is delayed, right? It jammed and stopped. So we're open gap down quite considerable, right? And then the market, is anybody else having these data issues? Is it stopping and starting? Or is that just me? Anyone? Ooh, big bid there at 49.33. Do not, I would not try and get into this at all. So as you can see, my charts are stopping and starting, and I would just, you can't trade this, right? You'd be crazy, absolutely crazy, right, to jump into this, right? Let the market open. Let those professional traders, let them go and figure out. This is not, look how thin the order book is. Oh my God. If you looked at the order book in in the E-mini right now, it's one and two aside, and there are gaps all over the order book. My my data feed is not a professional data feed. It's just the Sierra chart CQG data feed. So it can't keep up with this. Pages are missing, right? It's like you found a book at the swimming pool in the summertime and there's a whole bunch of pages missing, right? Yeah. So it's freezing and stuff like that. So as soon as you see stuff like that, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. There's no reason for you to go jumping around in this, right? Now there's some orders coming in, but just let the large traders work this out. We're down 4% on the open. I think it's down 7% where we stop. You could see a limit down. These are definitely not conditions that a retail trader wants to be getting into. Okay? This is not for us, right? Looks like they timed it out again, right? and then it'll start jumping around again. This is definitely, there's no way in hell I'm getting into that. Yeah, the everything's just getting knocked off. I noticed 4 hours ago, 6 hours ago, Bitcoin started just getting hammered. So, yeah, are you in Southern California? Joe, if I were you, I don't know, I'd be walking around Venice right now. See, and then there's the short cover, and this is just impossible to trade. Just leave this alone. It's pretty bad, Travis. You know how I always talk about how the market has been pretty steady because we've really not had any material change. Well, now we have material change, right? We've changed the underlying factors, right? That how these companies make money, so that's going to affect earnings. So when you have a material, look how big the spread is. Oh, geez, look at that, right? That's really not tradable, right? I mean, I feel bad for the people who are trying to trade this. They don't have sophisticated software and really fast data. Uh, I would not be interested in this at all. But yeah, there's some short covering now. Look how big that spread is. It's just hitting every order that goes in. I mean, I can't barely scroll enough to keep up with this crazy thing. Yeah, I mean, you really, yeah, there's no reason to trade this. I just wanted to be on and see what happened and talk to people. Um, really, folks, this is not family friendly trading. This is like X rated. Um, please don't jump into this. Um, if you want to have fun on the simulator, do that. But I, don't put your money on the line for this crap. This is like going shopping in the hood. You're going to get rolled and end up in a garbage can. Um, it pays to be a price action snob. Yeah, it's impossible to be able to be fast enough. Especially look how big the spread is, right? Yeah, it could get way worse, Travis. I mean, I don't like to be a doom and gloom guy, but you know, it's the Las Vegas Open. When you have markets that these markets have been built on short positions and a lack of supply, right? Now you introduce a whole bunch of supply all at the same time. Let me talk a little bit about if anybody here knows the structure of how these things work. All of that stock in Tesla, Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, look at the large positions. They're being warehoused by huge money management firms. And those firms um, essentially, hold on to that stock for 20 or 30 years unless there's a material change, right? Now we have a massive material change. So when you have these big material changes, things like levels and all of that, none of that, don't try and trade any of my levels, right? Levels are meaningless because when size traders come in and they have business to do, they're going to run you over. They don't care what the levels are. They're always active, truth. If we get down 7% in the ES, it'll lock limit down, right? I think we're down 4 or something like that. So the other thing is all of that stock is used as it's used in leverage, right? It's collateral, right? So a lot of people who have huge net worths, if you have over 60 million in net worth, Goldman Sachs will loan you money based on your portfolio. So, but if the price of Apple or something like that gets cut in half, well, you're going to have to start paying some margin loans, right? So that's why this selling, these markets are built on credit, and everything is sort of, you know, put together that way. Let's see, this is some short covering, right? We know most probably there's going to be a seller at the top of that candle here, right? If we can get up there. Right? There's a seller here. There's a seller at 48.96, 97. Let's see if they can, you know, build out some normalcy here. Yeah, 100 points on a 1 minute. We've built very, very thin markets over the last 10 years, right? And when you have markets that are this thin, uh, it's very easy to move them with any kind of a sizable order because nobody wants to buy, nobody wants to sell. There's nobody wants to play in this. This is just speculators. The business that's being done tonight is people who have to do business. Really, nobody wants to do business on a night like this. They have to. Like the liquidity providers, look how it's jumping around. There's ones and twos in the order book. The order book is so thin. Reminds me of an old early 90s penny stock, you know? So let's see if we could get past that 97 seller that's been camped out right there, right? So if we clean that out, that's really the only thing that I can be sure of is there's a seller there. Now, if that seller or that group of sellers, if they see buyers, they'll lift their offers, right? So you can see there's a seller right there. The top of the candle is where the sellers initiate. Liquidity providers have to provide liquidity, right? They have agreements with the exchange to provide liquidity. Now, they have a business to operate, so they're not going to provide liquidity and go out of business. That's why the order book is thin. So if you have 100 contracts to sell, they'll buy it. Where they buy it, that's another story. Let's see if that seller is still where that red line is around 49, 16, 17. There it is. See? One thing you can tell, the levels might not work. The order flow might be crazy. But one thing, folks, that you can count on is a seller always being around. Right? There they are, right there. Right? If they see buy orders, they'll lift their offer. Right? But the initial response was to step in there and hammer it because they had size there before. Right? So that size, they're going to be here. Right? And this is how you look at these markets. Right? Yeah, I'm not well versed in options and that sort of thing. But one thing I do know is inventory and order flow because it's been my whole life for 33 years. And I know when a big order comes into a market, it doesn't care about price, right? It either needs to get in or get out. So we had some nice short covering off of that 48.40 level. Now let's see how the cookie crumbles. I wish these charts would move automatically on days like this. Overnight point of control is here, but that doesn't really mean anything. My data could be off. Now let's see. We know we have sellers up here, right? We have trapped long inventory in this area. So right here, that's where we're looking for them to come in and sell. Gosh. History in the making, right? What is that saying, the Chinese saying, may you live in interesting times? Well, there you go. We're living in interesting times. Oh yeah, putting size in this market. The only reason that you would put size in this is you have to, right? And if you have to, it means that you're providing liquidity. So this 49.44, if we take this out, it could be interesting. Watch, right? Remember, selling sometimes only lasts for so long because it's nighttime too. So anything can happen. And these short covering rallies, I mean, that was a hell of a rally. And of course, after the fact, everybody will say, "Oh, I was long 48.60 and I sold it at 49.30." Because then I went to the imaginary Ferrari dealership. But just take this into note. Watch. Now you're going to have some sort of understanding of what markets are like when they get untradeable. Now, the biggest problem that retail traders face is they don't know when to trade and they don't know when not to trade, right? They see stuff jumping around like this. A lot of them don't even know what a spread is. And that's because nobody teaches them the basics of how markets work. And that's what we try and do in our room, is we try and provide the actual basics of how market works. So you're not just trading in there, just throwing money out the window, right? Because if you don't understand how you're using your capital, you're basically just throwing money out the window, right? I don't see any point risking any money if you don't know what you're doing. That's why those funded trader programs are great. Um, because you basically get to screw around on sim until you develop some sort of sense of discipline. Yeah, so there's that seller in that 49.36 area. Now let's go find the bid again. It's going to be a contra. This is what we call price discovery, right? And it's price discovery. You'll hear all the old traders when they'll be screaming, because it's Sunday and they've probably had a couple of Irish whiskeys. So they'll be screaming, "Don't trade, you idiots!" Right? But they're just trying to keep you guys from, losing your rent money. The thing is, this liquidation, these times, there will be opportunity. You just have to wait for the opportunity to develop, right? And what we try and do is we try and keep you calm in periods like this until these things kind of settle down. And when they settle down, guess what? You're not going to get those stally moves where the market's making a new high every day, but you're going to get some nice back and forth trading. Oh, where the hell are we now? Oh, there we are. 49.06. If you make money in this, do you think it could lead to have unrealistic expectations? Definitely, Travis. If you're making money in this, and I don't mean to be, I mean, okay, if you're skilled and you have, those heavy duty data feeds and stuff like that. But if you're a retail trader and you're trading an order book with six aside on economic news, Travis, it's like if for you it'd be like trying to do underwater welding when you've never actually even held a welding torch. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have unrealistic expectations and get lucky if you make any money. It's just pure, just as we say in Canada, S house luck, right? It has nothing to do with skill. You could get lucky, but more likely than anything, you're just going to get destroyed, right? You have to be intelligent about when to do business, right? It reminds me. There's a story when I was when I was a bouncer, we went to another nightclub to visit some friends. I was with my buddy, and this guy was hilarious. He was like Zoolander. He was a male model, and his girlfriend was beautiful. And so I was with him and this other girl, and we're in the nightclub, and the Hells Angels come in, and they get into a fight with a bunch of people on the dance floor, and bodies are flying around the dance floor, and tables are flying, and the girls go, "Let's go dancing." Right? That's I just grabbed everybody and got out the back door of the club, and the police were showing up. Like you don't want to go dancing when there's like people fighting on the dance floor. You know what I mean? Does that kind of make sense, Travis? A little bit of common sense, right? It's like walking out into like heavy traffic with a blindfold on. You kind of hear what I'm saying? There has to be a point when common sense has to figure into your business plan, right? It you know, and a lot of people will go, "Oh, JJ, you're telling people not to trade." Well, I just don't want you to throw your money away. I mean, be my guest. But if you really want to throw money away, you could just send it to us and we'll go have a party. At least at least you'll fund a good time, right? You know, it's just like, hey, if you feel like throwing away 20 grand, I mean, what do you guys use? Venmo? Here's my Venmo, right? Let's see if it slows down a little bit. And it'll just, if you look at the time and sales too, that also helps. It'll be stop and start and stop and start. It's just jumping all over the place. But it's starting to build out some structure, right? It's starting to build out some structure. But look how big the spread is. Yeah, the spread is pretty big tonight. You know, it's spread like a penny stock. So or the data can barely keep up. You know, never be afraid, and this is what I tell people all the time. Never be afraid to visualize something that you can actually identify with when it comes to markets, right? Um, it's very people love to confuse retail traders and investors so they can take their money, right? And they use lots of big words and fancy phrases, but none of it actually makes you any money, you know. Um, what makes you money is having a trade plan and a risk plan, and your risk plan should actually be built into your trading plan. So if you're going long, for instance, right, say you're going long at 48.88, right, your stop should be at the bottom of that candle because you're going long. The business reason for the trade means nobody needs to sell under 88. But if people are willing to sell under 88, your your business idea at that time makes no sense. So you got to get out, right? Um, there's a business reason for the trade to work, and there's a business reason why we enter the trade. It's based on that. There's a structure around it because none of this is random. Yeah, markets and olive oil, right? I don't know. This could be Crisco, James. I don't know. We'll see. Right? See, there's some bids that down there at 48.88. Right? So if you were going long at 90 against 88, well, I'm not telling you to. You want to sell into this, right? Because there's a seller at 90 at 96. Know what I mean? Hey, hola, hermano. Right? How's things in Buenos Aires? Muy bien. One of these days I'm going to come down to South America and visit, man. I've always wanted to see Argentina and I've always wanted to see southern Brazil. See, look, there's sellers at 96. Thank you, brother. I'm practicing my Spanish because, like every North American who has worked his whole life and not traveled, when you discover Spain, you're like, "Oh my God, people live like this?" I'm in. Beautiful. Okay. It's kind of settling into a rhythm. I don't know. How long do you guys want to go tonight? We'll go until the next period and watch it for a while. See if you guys have questions. Yeah, what is it? 6 o'clock in New York now. So it might start to settle down a little bit as long as none of these guys tweet something stupid. Like some country tweets out some "I'm angry about this." Maybe if everyone just keeps quiet, we can get some calmer order flow. So we've cleaned out that 98 4900 seller. Hey, Aubrey. See, now Aubrey, he's been trading for a while, and you know he's a little crazy. So he tested the waters. A little bit of bungee jumping there. See if we can clear out that 49.15. Yeah, it'll settle down. There's going to be a lot of um, opportunity. There'll be a ton of opportunity. This kind of stuff creates opportunity. It's like you've broken open a lot of, Fabergé eggs and the jewels are going to fall out. It just takes a little time, right? Is anything done in after hours going to hold up in RTH? That's a great question, Travis. The honest answer is I don't know. I cannot tell you about anything that's going to happen in the next few days. And I think it would be irresponsible if I said, "Oh yeah, this is going to happen and then this is going to happen." I'm not a macro trader, and I'm a tape reader. I'm an inventory trader. I've always been a seller my whole life of size, right? And um, I don't, I didn't hang out with the analysts and know what their models are, and to take a full extent of what the tariffs are going to be and their implications on earnings. These folks are going to go model that. So in all of that, Travis, there's a big I don't know. This is like a really, really um, serious time in the market. It's not to be screwed around with. Like that cash that you made over the last couple of weeks, you want to hold on to that, right? Like a life preserver when the Titanic goes down. You know what I mean? Right? You don't want to do anything risky. Can you go over a detailed risk business plan? Yes. So, Michael, my risk is baked into the business plan, which means there's a reason why I would take a trade long and there's a reason why I take a trade short. That reason is dependent on the actual business that's being conducted, right? So the chart is a distribution chart. It's a distribution chart which shows the inventory of the particular market that we are watching. It is basically a sales chart. Now, after all of that, if I'm going to take a short, I need to know that sellers are competing. If I'm going to take a long, I need to know that sellers don't need to sell under a certain level. So say I wanted to go long 49.12. I would wait for the market to come underneath 49.12 and then try and get back up over it. Because here I can tell that they need to sell under 12. See how it's coming back up over 12 now? In 7 seconds, the next 1 minute candle will open, and it will tell me whether or not at the time that the sellers, do they need to sell under 12? So if I was looking to go long, see, no, not yet. There's no reason for me to go long yet over 12. Does that make sense? So if I were to go long, right, if it gets back over 12 and say I go long 14, right, well, I know that it's a really wide market tonight and it's choppy, right? Say this candle was above, I would have my stop here and my warning sign at 12 had I gone, long 14, right? But right now I know that the sellers need to sell under 12 for now. Does that make sense? Because if you're a large seller and you're selling and everybody else is, you need to capture the buying because you need to get out of your inventory, especially on a night like this. So your risk is predicated on the fact that the sellers don't need to sell under that level. As soon as they show that they do, you're out of the trade. So there's a business reason why you take the trade. There's a business reason why you get out of the trade. There's a business reason why you can stay in the trade. So say example, you were shorting 12, right? If you were shorting 11, 12, you'd put your stop above 12. If you were a big shooter, you'd put your stop above 16, right? And then you'd cover a little at 4, you'd cover a little at 48.96. And down here where they stopped selling before, you'd put your bids in because they just hit them and you'd cover. Does that make sense? So the business reason for the trade is that sellers need to compete under 12 and they're going to push price lower to capture the buying because they're trading size. Hey, what's up, Fish? How you doing? Yeah, it's very reminiscent. But, it's not as janky, but it's not tradable for most retail, you know. Just take it easy. It's Sunday night, you know. It's Sunday night, it's spring, you know. Michael, you never answered me. Let me know if that was helpful. Hey, Zaz, what's going on? High velocity, yes. Maximum velocity, wasn't that a movie? Right? Yeah, just use some common sense, folks, right? Don't get all wrapped up in the oh, I've got to trade. Oh, I've got to jump in there, right? The price action will calm down, right? As the market digests all this news cycle, the price action will calm down. There'll be a ton of opportunities, right? Just are you going to have any cash to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, right? So if you're long 96, right, sell a little, right? You know there's going to be a seller before 12 because that's where there's price competition there before, right? So just keep your trading really simple. Don't try and get too fancy, right? Right there. It hit 12 to the tick. right? So if you were long, take some profits, right? Right? You know the next seller is going to be here. The seller is going to be at the top of every candle. That's where they initiate, right? The seller creates the top of the candle when they price compete with other sellers, right? That is not rocket science, you know? As the market settles in a little bit, trading conditions will get a little better. See where they're building out some volume. If you want to use, if you don't have market profile, you don't need market profile, you can use volume profile with a simple 1 minute candle wax chart, you know. Pretty simple stuff. The whole thing is just protect your money, ladies and gentlemen, right? Don't jump around like a chicken with its head cut off, you know. Just be practical, be smart. There'll be lots of opportunity, and if you want to learn how to trade, we've got guys like Fish in our room who are institutional. I'm an ex deal guy who did nothing but feed market makers, order flow for decades. And I've been a seller all my life. So, we understand how sellers behave because we used to sell size. We used to work size orders for clients. So we understand how that works. And in markets like this, if I'm sure, Fish, you can agree with me, if you need to get out of a position and you see a bid down there, you're going to go hit it, you know, because it doesn't really matter what the price is when you need to get out. You're just going to get out of that position, especially if a margin clerk hands you the order, right? you know, you just got to transact. You know? There's a lot of forced selling in these markets. Remember, everybody trades on credit, and the value of the collateral when that gets wiped out, there's a lot of bill collecting going on right now on Wall Street, right? There's a lot of knock, knock, knock. Hey, you got that extra 50 million you owe us, right? That's all it is. They come up with fancier and fancier ways of describing this stuff, but just keep it simple. Markets have been around for thousands of years, right? And the concept of a market has never changed. It's about distribution of inventory. Right, right now, nobody wants to buy. Right? Now, candles are starting to get smaller now, right? The range over the last 5 minutes is tightening up a little bit, 10, 12 points. We'll see if that continues. The other thing is don't take anything for granted, okay, during times like this and at night because of the lack of size in the order book. Any kind of large order, any kind of stray order can really hurt you. If you do decide to trade, please use stops and please realize that those stops might not be honored in the way in which you might honor them because market conditions allow the industry to get away with things because let's face it, they come first, right? Their business comes first, right? If you had a business, you're going to do everything you can to protect your business. You're not there as a charity, right? So in times like this, remember that these people are not here for the dental plan, right? Um, and when things get ugly, they will roll right over you, right? Don't ever forget that. So stay safe out there. Does anybody have any other questions? I'll kind of wrap this up because I don't want to keep people too late. It's a Sunday. You want to go and enjoy time with your families, be normal, enjoy life a little bit. Any questions? It's starting to calm down a little bit, you know. But I wouldn't be just jumping in there. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it's a quick session. Thanks, folks on YouTube. Come visit us at Microefutures. Um, we have some coaching programs in the room. You know, we have mentorship available for those of you who want to level up their trading, and those of you who want, you know, someone to work with them for their entire career. We keep our, you know, costs low so people can afford over time to learn. And we're one of the only trading rooms. We don't use any fancy language, any double talk. We're going to teach you how to trade in a practical manner so normal people can make a living and manage their risk. So thank you very much, folks, for being with us. Really appreciate it. I will be on in 7 hours for the London Open. I'll be around 7:30 UK time, 2:30 in the morning New York time. If any of you have insomnia, please join us. Thanks, everyone. Okay, Wicca, you sent me a message on DM. Where, in the room? Oh, I don't think I got it. Here, I'll just DM you now. There we go. And if anybody needs me, just reach out. I'm always around. Thanks, everyone. Please, you know, be smart, be safe, and we'll see you in a few hours. Bye for now.